All right, so it's been a full semester of teaching in a hybrid form. So now it's time to do kind of a wrap up 7 top tips video after the whole semester experience, leading into the spring semester as well, if you are going to be teaching hybrid, in the next semester and going forward. All right, so let's talk about these 7 tips. Hey there, this is Erica from Ever Educating, and this channel is teaching tips for new college instructors, but recently a lot about ed tech and online and hybrid teaching as well, which of course can apply to other levels, especially high school, since we have similar age of students a lot of the time, right? Because I teach freshmen in college. So my 7 tips, the first 2, we're gonna start with physical items, all right? So I would love to know what you think is the best tool to take with you when hybrid teaching, but here are my top 2. The first is a water bottle with a straw attachment, okay? So because you're wearing the mask when you're teaching, it can be hard to take it off, obviously, to drink, but if you're using a straw with your water bottle, then it's a really quick, slight raising of your mask, and then you could take a sip from your water whenever you'd like. You don't have to actually raise your whole mask over the nose or anything like that. So I highly recommend using a water bottle that comes with a straw attachment. I'm not saying use like regular plastic straws, but actually a straw that comes with the bottle itself. So I have my favorite linked below that I'm showing here on screen, but definitely recommend a water bottle with a straw because your throat's gonna get very dry speaking with a mask on constantly. So that leads to tip number 2, which is to have the lightest weight mask as possible, right? So obviously it needs to do the work of the mask for protection, but I use a medical mask to make sure it's super light. If you don't have this option and using a cloth mask, then I recommend having this little thing that you can insert into it so that you can breathe more easily and you have more room to speak. And that way it can help to make sure that you're not getting overheated, or I talked about in my video of my top 5 struggles with hybrid teaching, that wearing a mask was my 5th one, right, on that list, and I'll link that video below. But definitely it could help to have a lightweight mask or to have this insertion bracket so you can breathe a bit more easily. So those are my top tools in the classroom. What are your top tools, right? What do you need to take with you every time you teach a hybrid class? I'd be curious to know if I'm using that tool or if I should be getting one for the next semester, all right? Then my next 2 tips, one is for the beginning of class and then one is for the end of class. So in the beginning, I had many students who got to class late this semester, both in person physically and also on Zoom, right, with setting up the tech. And so a lot of times I'd be going over instructions and then 3 more students show up. And now they're completely lost because I've already explained what we're doing in class. So a tip to get around this is to actually have a bell ringer activity, which I had never heard that phrase before until I had one of my subscribers comment on it. So thanks for that label. But basically it's an activity that you do when the bell rings, when class starts. And so that way it can be a short independent activity. So let's say a writing prompt that they write in their notebook. But if you give them 5 minutes or so, right, then once those 5 minutes pass, hopefully you have all your stragglers have arrived in class. And so for them, they're responsible for doing the independent work on their own time, but at least you haven't given instructions for the major class activity and they've missed it, right? Because now after the bell ringer is when you go over here the announcements, here's the instructions for what we're doing in today's class period. So of course, you'll still have a few stragglers that are 5, 10, maybe even more minutes late. And now it's their responsibility to ask me or to ask a classmate for instructions. But at least for the ones who are just, have a short tech issue, right? Or they're running to class because they're a few minutes late or it was raining, then at least for them, they're not gonna miss the class activity instructions. So a short activity in the beginning of class is one tip. And then for the end of class, doing an exit card, right? And so I have videos on this, but basically doing a takeaway card where you say, okay, what's the top thing you learned or the most important thing you learned in today's class period? Because a lot of times, the Zoom students, they're signed on, but then at the end of class, when everybody's saying goodbye because I just missed them, and then I still have 2 or 3 students who are on Zoom, and I'm like, oh, do you have any questions? And it's silent and they're not actually there, then who knows when they actually left class? Have they been gone the whole time, right? And so students know every single class period, I'm gonna ask a short question that relates to what we learned in class, and I'm gonna collect that, right? So if they're there in person and they don't have laptops or tablets or iPhones, right? Or smartphones, then you can do an index card for this. But for most of them, they probably have an easy way where on Canvas or whatever LMS you're using, you can just have, okay, so it's today's exit card, right? That they turn in digitally. Just type in this thing and submit it to me. So that way they know, well, if I don't actually have this, ability to do the takeaway, then she'll know or he'll know that I'm not there, right? Hopefully it will get more students to be there throughout the whole class period. So and a little entry activity and exit activity, two things to consider to get them there on time and also more involved in the class activity and actually paying attention when they need to be. Now, if you're not someone who's recording a whole class period, right, then I still recommend recording short pieces of really important information. So in my case, whenever I have like a lecture that I'm doing, like a short 10-minute or 20-minute lecture before a class discussion, I record the lecture itself and then I stop so at the class discussion they feel more comfortable speaking aloud because they know they're not being recorded. But for the part that's just me speaking, I want to be able to share that with students who are absent or those who are there but not really there, right? So highly recommend that you record these short videos when needed. You might do pre-recorded videos on your own at home for major essential ideas or concepts or steps for a process that you're teaching. But if you're in class and I'm going to do a short lecture, I recommend recording it if you're not already, because then students can depend on that rather than constantly have to ask you or ask a classmate or just sit in confusion and never ask anybody and then do poorly on a future assignment. So definitely I recommend doing the video recordings, right? And so my next tip then is Kahoot is a go-to for quick quizzes because it auto grades for you, so it's fast for you. But it also can be great for getting information from your students, getting feedback from your students on what they want to do in class. So I have these two videos about how in my Unit 3, I literally had them decide how the classwork would be designed. And so I created a Kahoot where I'm like, all right, what do you think is the best activity for this type of task? And then they chose activity design, right? And so I won't go into more detail. You have the videos down there in the description. But basically, they decided what Unit 3 looked like in the classroom, and I used Kahoot for this, so it's easy to see the reports, right? It's easy to get the feedback immediately to know how many students chose each answer for the way to design the activity. And so I recommend this for getting student feedback, as well as, again, short quizzes on concepts or terminology that can be graded automatically. And if you do it live in class and you see, oh, a lot of students got this question wrong, let me explain what the right answer is, right? And so you can do immediately explanations for what's an issue rather than having quizzes that you have to then grade yourself or see outside of class and then come back in the next class period with, hey, there's confusion about this. Do it immediately if you use Kahoot. This one can be time consuming, but I think it could be very helpful for students and helping them succeed. I think I'm gonna have to start this much earlier in the semester next time around, but it's doing weekly emails for those who are missing assignments or who have been absent for the whole week. Okay, so I teach Tuesday and Thursday, and so Thursday evening or maybe Friday, sending out an email to like, okay, Adam, you were absent this whole week. What's going on? We did this kind of stuff. You can see it on Canvas. Turn this activity as soon as possible. If you meet with me to go over information, let's meet on Zoom one-on-one as soon as we can, right? Email me back to give me an update, right? So let's say that your Unit 1 was due on Tuesday, and then by next Tuesday, you still haven't gotten the Unit 1 back from 5 people, then obviously tell them in class, hey, it's been a week, I'm missing your work. But then again, after that Thursday class, if it's still not in, then email them. This is a notification, you're missing Unit 1, you should be turning in as soon as possible. If you have any questions about it, email me and let me know what questions you have. If you want to meet one-on-one, tell me a time that works for you, right? And so obviously this is not to every student. These are the ones who are not turning in major assignments or who have many absences. Because that way, it won't work for all of them, but for the students who are just struggling with something or that now that they've missed 4 classes, they're kind of ashamed to go back. If you have these weekly emails, then they know, oh, she's waiting for me to come back, right? I should actually be going back if I'm ready to do so, okay? Oh, that's right, I am missing this assignment for this class. She's obviously invested in me doing well. I should be putting in effort in return, okay? So rather than waiting 5 weeks and you haven't seen them, and sure, you've been flagging them on your LMS or the case may be, but you haven't been emailing them, maybe having that one-on-one relationship will help them actually get back into class, turn in the assignments. Okay, so there can be a point in return but I'm gonna try out doing these weekly emails and seeing if it helps more of them keep track and turn in activities and attend class either in person or on Zoom as often as possible. Because I had so many absences this semester, it was unbelievable to me. And so I wanna cut that down, and I think I'm gonna try this approach to see if it works best. Okay. Now I have a whole playlist about hybrid teaching tips, which I'll link now on the screen. But I definitely recommend checking them out and seeing other strategies I've used. And if you have your own top strategy after the whole semester of hybrid teaching, I would love to hear it. Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you next time with the new videos.